to stand here this couple of days and talk about empathy is incredible, given what I've seen in progression in health and safety for a lifetime. Empathy. Why empathy with mental stress? And is that empathy necessary if the stress comes from work or life or whatever? Why would you want to have empathy? Empathy means feeling. Why would I want to feel your insanity? Whoa. So we got to talk about that because it's important if we're going to deal with it in the workplace as health and safety reps, as stewards, as human beings. So the purpose of my presentation then is to help us learn how empathy, added to law and science, and by science I mean the medical aspects of mental health, can help us be more successful representing people with mental health issues. So empathy can help us represent, I think it can help you represent people with regular workplace injuries or injured and regular people with pain. You know, in any aspect of their life, I think empathy can help. And I'm going to suggest something here. In this world, I'm probably not going to like everybody. But the fact is that we can learn and should learn to respect everyone. We can learn from everybody. Their experience is different. Your experience is different than my experience. So you can learn from me, but I can learn from you. But we need that respect to learn. Okay? What is stress? So this comes from the World Health Organization. Stress can be defined as any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. Stress is your body's response to anything that requires attention or action. Everyone experiences stress to some degree. The way you respond to stress, however, makes a big difference to your overall well-being. It's a pretty broad definition of stress, but we all experience stress. There are always going to be stressors in the work because you're learning something, it's new. Anything that's new or different is stressful for most people in some way or another. Does that make sense? When I was doing my research, I found that there's 7 types of mental stress. Number 1, a temporary high-level stress is acute stress, okay? Personal and non-personal stressors. Number 3, not knowing stressors. Oh, this is a big one for me. I'm the kind of guy, and I was talking to a coach earlier today who coaches hockey, and we both agreed that there are always somebody on your team, and there'll be a number of you in this room, who can't learn anything that they don't know and understand. Some of you will believe me because I tell you. Some of you will take what we talk about today back to the workplace and implement it, and you'll see that it works, and that's fine. But others like me have to think about it and understand it, right? So not knowing, I find that very stressful. Trigger stressors, what's that? So each of us have our own triggers. When people say certain things to you, get upset about it, okay? Those are all triggers. Yeah, they're triggers for our mental health. We're all in this together, right? If we understand that my triggers might be different than your triggers, but we all have triggers, then I can respect you even if you go off the deep end with me once or twice. Doesn't matter. Because I could do the same with you in a different situation. So we're all in this together. Big thing. Daily hassles. Ooh. How many people have gone out drinking and drank too much one night? Do you love getting up in the morning to go to work the next day? Not so much, eh? So we all have our daily stressors. For some of us, it may be the person who is stressed out at work that I have to work next to. That may be a daily hassle for me. How do I deal with that? I think the only successful way to deal with it for me is for me to have empathy with that person. Otherwise, it's a hassle that keeps going on and on and on and on, and it's driving me crazy. And I say, this person's driving me crazy. No, I'm sorry. My lack of empathy is driving me crazy. So having empathy with somebody who's struggling helps me. It's not just something I do for other people. I do it for myself. And I lived in India for several years, and one of the sort of wise men of India said to me one time, he said, if you want to be selfish, be truly selfish, 100%. What's he saying? I thought he was nuts, right? But he says, well, what that means is that I want every person around me to be fulfilled in whatever way they need. Because then they're not getting on my case. Then they're not after my money. Then they're not after my peace of mind. Then everything's wonderful if I make everybody else wonderful. And that's empathy, as it turns out. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't think of it in that way at the time. But that's empathy. If I can help you with your crisis of whatever it happens to be, it makes my life easier. Oh, geez, it's really nice to see you coming to work smiling again. So daily hassles, chronic stressors. What are chronic stressors? We talked about acute stressors as number 1. This one's number 6 is a chronic stressor. What does that mean? Chronic just means ongoing. So it's a stressor that I have from childhood because something happened to me in childhood. And something comes up and it triggers another type of stressor, this chronic stressor in me. And it just keeps going on and on and on, and I have to be able to deal with that. And empathy can help people deal with that. And then the last one that we want to talk about is the ripple effect stressor. So anybody ever throw a stone in the water and watch the ripples go out? So that's the stressor the stress that affects everybody around you. Okay, you're stressed out. You, for some reason, think everybody in the world should be stressed out. Maybe you don't even think like that, but it happens that everybody around you gets stressed out. So if we can help that person, or they can help themselves, because they have to be a part of it, then the ripple effect becomes one of, as we would have said at the beginning of this morning, of love and joy and all that sort of beautiful things, right? So we can help ourselves by helping others. Okay, so now I get to really what I'm supposed to be talking about, and that's workplace stress. So stress, the policy, what is work-related mental stress? So the definition of workplace mental stress, and this comes directly from the WSIB in Ontario. A work-related mental stress injury is a psychological injury or illness caused by one or more substantial, and that's important, substantial sources of stress at a person's work by one or more work-related traumatic events. Okay, this is really important. And how do we know traumatic mental health stress? Okay, a worker will generally be entitled to benefits. And notice it says generally. That's a kind of like, well, maybe. Okay. If an appropriately diagnosed mental stress injury is caused by one or more traumatic events arising out of and in the course of a worker's employment. Now that's in the Act. Arising out of and in the course of employment is part of the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act. So nothing is allowable that doesn't arise out of or in the course of employment. Doesn't matter whether it's physical, mental, whatever. It just doesn't matter. If you can't prove that it arises out of employment, it's not. You can't get it done. So traumatic events. So witnessing a fatality or a horrific accident, being involved in a traumatic event, being the object of physical violence, which can happen. Anybody ever got beat up in your workplaces? I know that some of you have seen it. The person who got beat up could be stressed out. The people around could be stressed out. Being the object of death threats. Okay, so threats of physical violence, and this would include death threats, where the worker believes the threats are serious and harmful to their self and or others. You would need the diagnosis around that, right? So you'd have to have somebody that's capable of making that diagnosis to the WSIB's satisfaction to get that one done. Or an object of workplace harassment. Okay? So traumatic mental stress is that, right? Harassment, near-death experiences, or having somebody die beside you. One of the first issues I had with stress was I represented a fellow, and he never did end up working again at a construction site. He just couldn't do it. And he ended up with 100% disability from WSIB. And he was one of the founders of the Injured Workers Group. And he helped literally hundreds and hundreds of other workers. But he couldn't go back to the workplace because somebody had died right beside him. Nothing physical happened to him. He just could not go back to work. So we got him 100% disability. He started the Injured Workers Group and helped all kinds of people. It's amazing what you can do, no matter who you are. It's amazing what we can do as human beings. And as I said before, and I stress this with myself all the time, and so I'm stressing it with you, as we're all in this together. Okay, chronic mental stress. Okay, so chronic mental stress. Substantial work-related stressor. What's a substantial work-related stressor? It's got to be more intense or a longer duration than your average, normal, everyday workplace stressors, right? So you end up, you just don't want to go to work anymore because you're going to face this every day. And that's chronic, right? And workplace harassment. What's workplace harassment? Well, let me think. Let's say you're not allowed to climb towers anymore because of your injury. And every day you go to work and somebody says, well, you're going to climb today, or you're going to make us do all the work? Doesn't matter. The first time it might even be cute. Second time it might even be, a little bit funny. Third time maybe not so much, but every single day it could wear you down. And I have never argued this case, but I would argue that I could argue it and maybe be successful. Although when I was doing the research for this, and it doesn't surprise me, I did run across somebody's statistic, and it wasn't a board statistic, so I don't know how true it is, but they said the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board in Ontario disallows 90% of the stress claims. So when people have a stress claim that's disallowed, that's where we come in. As representatives, we can only represent you within law and policy. Nobody can get compensation because they say they're stressed out at work. It just doesn't work that way. A stress problem issue that might be compensable, it needs to be diagnosed. Certainly a psychiatrist diagnosis is the gold standard, but now they're talking about family doctor, nurse practitioner, psychologist, as well as the psychiatrist. That's the WSIB's criteria for a diagnosis for mental health issues for stress. Stress just encompasses all the mental health issues that you might face in life and at work. They're stressors. So you need a diagnosis that fits within DSM-5, which is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And that's an important little book. Well, it's a big book, actually. That is the Bible of mental illness. Okay? So if you think you have a mental illness, you can spend the rest of your life reading through all the diagnoses and seeing if you reading through all the different disorders and see if you have one of them. I can guarantee you we all do, so it doesn't matter. But that DSM-5 is the latest version of that, and that's the one that the board's using now. It's the latest version. Okay, so benefits and services are not allowed for mental stress caused by an employer's management decisions or actions. Okay, so you get fired, sent home, you get laid off for 2-3 days, you get sent home, you get laid off for 2-3 months, you get sent home, your employer yells at you regularly because they're a little bit over the top sometimes, but those are not compensable. You get so frustrated with your manager or your fellow workers who are just trying to do their job, even if we don't like their job, it's not compensable. It's considered a normal workplace stressor. If you're stressed out at home, which we all are from time to time, and you go to work and your manager tells you to do a job that you've never done before, and you go ballistic, and they fire you or send you home or discipline you in some other way, that's not a mental stressor. That's not workplace stress under the WSIB. So you can't claim to have a workplace injury. If the employer is doing what the employer normally does, if the job falls within the normal workplace kind of things that happen, it's not compensable, even if it causes you acute stress or chronic stress. It's still not compensable. So that's really important, because we all have stress at work, and some professions have more stress than others. But for most of us, normal workday stressors are normal workday stressors, and we have to be willing to put up with them, okay? So, claims are not allowed for stress caused by normal workplace interpersonal conflict either. In compensation law, you're guilty until you can prove yourself innocent in a sense. Okay, so unless you have evidence that somebody has treated you in a traumatic way, that's bullying or harassment or something like that, that's different from the normal behavior of the employer, different from what you could expect going to work for that employer, then you've got nothing. So normal workplace interpersonal conflict, discord, such as arguments or disagreements or changing your job or asking you to do something that you have never done before. Most job descriptions have something and other duties as assigned at the end. You know, it's not a stressor. In the legal sense of WSIB, it's not a stressor. Will it be stressful? Yes. My job at the board, one of my jobs at the board, was to help make things better for the staff so that they could provide better service delivery to injured people. Was that stressful on the staff? Absolutely. They told us what needed to be changed. And when we change it, it's still stressful for them, even though they bought into it already. Because change is stressful for most human beings. I would say all human beings, probably. Change is a stressful thing, and the workplace is not static. So arguments, disagreements, unless they're malicious, okay, that's a different thing, or abusive, or they amount to harassment, including bullying. So you can't, it used to be fine if the sort of, everybody had somebody that we love to hate, you know, in the workplace or at school or whatever it was, and they were harassed, and some would bully, some would just harass, but that person ended up suffering maybe the rest of their lives. We don't know. And there should be some sort of ability, if it becomes too stressful to handle, for the person involved to make a claim. And the only person that knows whether your stress is too much to handle is you. The problem with the board and law and policy is there's sort of there's a bunch of stressors around doing the right thing. Yeah. So employers hate mental stress claims, most of them. They don't realize that the research, if they did it, shows that if you treat your employees well, you get treated well by your employees. It's a big, big thing. Inco told me one time that they saved $35 million a year when they started treating their injured employees properly and bringing them back to work at meaningful, real jobs. Some of your employers would do well to talk to Inco about that because they're not there yet. Okay, that's just one example, and I can give you others. So, yes, there's research around it, and yes, the research is available, but employers don't like mental stress claims. Some politicians think that it's a tip of the iceberg. So everybody's going to be making a mental stress claim because all work is stressful. I don't like going to work either. Why should you get I get stressed out at work. Why should you get paid for getting stressed out at work? There's all kinds of people that don't understand, that have their own versions of reality, that don't fit with the research. All we can do is chip away at it, I think. Talk about it. These kind of discussions are fantastic. Take them back to the workplace and, apply them and talk about it. Other than the everyday empathy that we can try and avoid claims, but which we should. That should be the big focus should be to avoid stress claims and stress appeals. Okay, representing with empathy. So, respect. Again, I put that at the top. And I put that at the top because if I don't have respect for you and acceptance of the situation that got you to the situation you're in, then how can I help you, right? And I want to help you, that's number two. I want to try and help you. I have to respect you. This is something we never talked about a few years ago. And it's something I've sort of thought about and come to the conclusion that it's absolutely essential if we're going to have a better human race. I don't have to like you, but I do have to respect you. Okay? So, research. Do the research. If you don't know where to get started doing the research, give me a call. I'll put you in the right direction. Listen. How can I represent you for your needs if I can't listen to you? I might know a lot, but I don't know more about you than you do. And the only person that knows whether your stress is too much to handle is you. So I have to listen if I want to get to the bottom line. And then I have to be somewhat discriminating. So I have to talk to you after I listen to you. I have to say, okay, I see this and see this and see this. But these are the things we can actually do something about. Okay, so you respect, help, research, listen. Listen maybe should be number two after respect. Talk to the person. It's their claim. You don't have a right to go representing them doing what you want. But you have an obligation to be honest with them, tell them what you think you might be able to do. Don't promise them anything. We don't make the decisions. But say, you've got evidence for this. We can try this. And as long as they accept that, then you can represent them. If they want something else, then you have to talk to them about it. There's not much you can do to help somebody that doesn't want help. But what you can do is prepare for that eventuality someday by being respectful to everybody so that they trust you enough to talk to you when they need to talk. Does that make sense? We can prepare for this even if it's years down the road. And if we start to prepare for it, it becomes a habit for us to respect other people. And if that habit means that they can talk to us or that we can support them somehow, that we can listen. Sometimes it's just listen. It's not even doing anything. I've had more people thank me for helping them in compensation claims that I lost than I have for claims that I won. And that's the truth. And I said, but I lost. Why are you thanking me? You're the first person that listens to me. Sometimes that's enough. I'm almost in tears thinking about those things. But you can help people even if you can't help people. You know what I mean? Just by being there and caring and listening and being empathetic, we can help people. Even if we don't know we're helping people. So empathy doesn't mean you're looking for a pat on the back, that's for sure. Empathy means that we're all in this together and you can feel for somebody. It's pretty simple, and it makes a huge difference in some people's lives because they don't get it anywhere else. And if you can be the person, all power to you.